Hey folks, this is Nick McPhee. This video is to answer a question that a student asked earlier about figuring out something about double letters in a string. Like, it wasn't entirely clear what we were going to do with double letters, but I think they realized that just looping through every character in a string wouldn't let us tell if there were ever double letters like EE next to each other, or LL or DD, something like that. And I said I would do something about that in class, and then we didn't have time, so I'm going to do it as a video. It's not obvious what we would want to do right away. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually just write a function that prints out whenever there are doubles in a string. So I'm going to create a function that I'm going to call print doubles. It's going to take a string, and I'm going to need to loop through the string and look at adjacent pairs of letters. So let's actually, if we think about a string like Morris, oops, spelled correctly, we're going to want to look at MO and OR and RR and RI and IS. So those are all the pairs that we want to look at. And actually, I would have been probably more useful if I had lined these up. Okay. Now, the question then is, well, what are the indices of these? Well, if we think about our positions, they're going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means that this pair here is going to be characters 0 and 1. And this pair is going to be 1 and 2. And this pair is 2 and 3, and 3 and 4, and 4 and 5. Okay. Now, an important thing to notice here is that the number of pairs is 1 less than the number of characters in the string. Like if I do len of Morris, it's 6 because there are 6 characters in Morris, but I only have 5 pairs, right? Because we're using adjacent characters, and there's not a pair that like wraps around and goes from S back to M. So I have 1 fewer pair than I have actual characters. And so when I do my range, like I might often do for I in range len string. But here, this is going to, in the case of Morris, for example, this is going to be 0 through 5. And if what I want is the starting position, I actually only want 0 through 4. And once I know the starting position of the double, I can always add 1 to get the next value. So I actually want -1 here. We'll have to look in a second at what happens if I forget to do that. But that's a slightly tricky thing about this, is I have 1 fewer pairs than I have characters, so I need a -1 in the range. Instead of going from 0 to 5, I want the range to be 0 to 4. Now, once I've done that, I can say if string I, that's this value here, or say this value here, if that is double equal to string I plus 1, square brackets, so I'm comparing 3 to 4, or 2 to 3, or 4 to 5, right? So the thing at position I to the thing at position I plus 1, if those two are the same, then we have a case of double letters. We have 2 letters next to each other that are identical. And so then I'll just print, there were 2 string I at position stir I. So this will print out for every pair of doubles it finds, or every instance of doubles, every pair of letters that it finds, it will print out there were 2, I can't spell, 2 And then I've got a single quote in here and a single quote in here. So those will put single quotes around the E or the O or whatever the double letter is at position. And then stir, remember, that converts an integer to a string, so I can append it here successfully. And that'll tell me where it was. So if I save that, let's say doubles example or video.py, and I load. If I say print doubles Morris, it finds that there were 2 R's at position 2. So M is 0, O is 1. This first R is at position 2. And it will actually do multiple doubles. So Nick McPhee lives in Morris and likes books. Whoa, print doubles, plural. So it said there were 2 E's at position 8. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that makes sense. Lives in Morris, so that would be these 2 R's at position, I'm guessing 22, I won't count them all. And the 2 O's at position 37 are there in books. So it's finding all the doubles. And so my for loop is basically saying, compare N and I, nope, they're not the same. Then go forward 1, compare I and C, nope, they're not the same. Go forward 1, C and space, nope. Go forward 1, space and M, nope. Go forward 1, M and C, they're different, so keep going. Eventually it gets E, and it's like, woo, those are the same. And then it prints out our little sentence saying there were 2 E's at position 8. Okay? So that's one thing we could do. Okay? Another option would be to find all the words that have double letters in a string and return a list of those words. So the first thing we need to do there is have a function that returns true or false if a word has a double. So we need something like has double string, and this is going to return true if string has a double and false if it doesn't. And basically it's the same thing as what we have here, except if they're equal, now we know we do have a double and we want to return true. And in Python, true and false are built in. They're called Boolean values. They're their own little type, like 2 and 7 are integers. True and false are Booleans. And so if we find a pair that are equal, we return true and then we're done. If, on the other hand, we get all the way to the end and we've never found a pair that's equal, then we would return false. Okay, let's load that. Let's see if that looks right. Has double Nick. And for reasons which are really rather annoying, Python returns 0 for false and 1 for true. So has double McPhee, we get a 1. And has double Morris, and we get a 1. And has double Frog, and we get a 0. So has double returns true when if it finds any pair that are equal. If it goes through all of the pairs and none of them were equal, so it's never returned true, which would exit immediately, then it will return false. It's like I got all the way to the end, it's never happened, I'm done, and I'm out of here. Then, with that, we can actually take some text, split it up into words, and find out if there are find out all the words that are doubles and make a list of them. So we could say def words with doubles, and that takes a string. And we're going to split the string into words using split. That's described in chapter 3, but it takes a string, Nick McPhee lives in Morris and likes books, dot split, and it returns a list, an array in formal parlance, of strings where each word has now been separated out into its own string. And we can now do a for word in on this list. So we could say for W in words, if has double W, then that means W has a pair of double letters. So we want to add it to some kind of thing that we're going to return. Let's actually start by just printing it. That's not a great solution, and we'll clean that up in a second. But for now, let's just print it if it has a double letter. So now words with doubles, and I don't want to repeat typing the string over and over again, so I'm just going to paste it in here. So this printed McPhee, Morris, and books. Those were the 3 words in this collection of text that had double letters. And that actually works pretty well. But it's printing things is often not as useful as returning a value, because if you return a value, you can then pass it to another function and do something with it, where when you print it, the human can see it, but there's no way to then act on it further in an easy fashion. It's like been printed, and now you don't have any access to it. So instead of printing it, let's actually create a list of all the words that have doubles. And we could do that by starting out with result being the empty list. And when we find a word that has a double, we could say result.append W. So that adds something to a list. Okay. And then at the end, we want to return result. That will give us the list with our values in. So this will now return the list of words. So the result starts out being empty. Whenever we find a word that has a double, we add it to the list. And when we're done, we return that result. So let's load that up and say words with doubles. Nick McPhee lives in Morris and likes books. And that returns the list, McPhee, Morris, and books, instead of just printing them. And that's nice because we could then hand that list as the input to another function that maybe loops over that and looks for things that start with capitals or I don't know what, right? It can do a variety of things with that. So that should give us a simple example of working with doubles, and it shows the use of indices, for loops over indices, the square bracket notation for accessing characters in a string, using double equals to compare things, conditionals for checking things, so if statements, returning, using Boolean values like true and false, creating an empty list, appending things to a list, and returning the list. So there's a lot there. So definitely ask questions if you've got any. Otherwise, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later.